Alright, this is a continuation of the engine that I was working on from Trade Performance short block. They set up the bottom end for me and did some work on the machine work on the bottom, and then I assembled the engine and put the rest of it together. And I left off with the port match, so I showed you guys how to put some RTV in there and then transfer it over to this and scribe it. Well, it's been about a year ago, and I had to leave the country for a while for military stuff, and I'm just now getting back to putting this together. So I went ahead and had this sent off to a machine shop, because by the time I was cleaning each one of these out, I was running out of bits so quick that I knew it was going to take me a long time, that I didn't have, and it was just cheaper to just send it off. It cost me like $100 just to have all these port matched, because I already scribed them. So I went ahead and had my local machine shop, somebody who I built a working relationship with, and somebody who I can trust. So it's been nice, because they cleaned the head up, or cleaned the intake manifold up, sandblasted it, and port matched it for me. After I showed them, you know, I left the scribe marks, but he did the machine work. So this is my Victor Jr. / Ford Performance intake manifold, and what I went ahead and did ahead of time was I set up these larger opening for the gaskets from Velcro, and I put down my favorite AC Delco RTV engine assembly RTV. Cut these holes out big enough, but left enough of the seal on there to allow water to flow through the heads and into the intake manifold. And then I also put some behind these corks, because I said earlier I wasn't going to use them, but I went ahead and did some research, and that these are actually really effective if you just go ahead and seal them up, as well as use them to allow the intake manifold to compress down on them. And you can also use the engine assembly RTV, I think they call it, great stuff, something like that. It's up to you, whatever your preference is. But I went ahead and cut these out as well as I can, match these up as well as I could, while still keeping them in the clips that came with the head gasket and the intake manifold, all from Velcro. And you can't see it, but these are flush right here. It looks like they're a little bit off to the side, but these are flush, so there's no air going to get stopped in there. And with the port match, I'm ready now to set my head down on here. Got everything sealed up. I don't have anything left in there, tools or caps or anything that I might have used to assemble this thing right now. And excuse the kids, I'm watching some friend's daughter. And so I'm going to go ahead and set it down on there, and I've got ARP bolts that are stainless that I'm going to throw down in there, and I'm going to go ahead and get those and start assembling this to seal that up. Alright, so I've got these ARP bolts that I used off my previous build, and they are really nice fasteners, so I'm going to go ahead and reuse those from when I parted out my Fox. And this is the motor I'm building to go into a Cobra kit car. I got these ARP bolts. The center ones, these are open to the bottom of the head, but are outside of the intake manifold. So the the 4 bolts on each side that are in the center of the intake manifold go all the way through to the to where the lifters in the valley is in the block. So when you're putting these in, throw a little RTV on each end of the bolt, or you can use the assembly lube for sealing with ARP, and throw those in there. I'm going to put some sealant on these and then stick those down in there and torque them. Okay, the bit on here is 3/8. It's the same as the oil pan bolts. I'm just going to go ahead and snug these down with my drill, and I'm not applying any torque to them. I'm just getting them so they're all the way down. And then I'll do a star pattern once I start torquing them. But I'm doing this so that I'm not cross-threading. I started them by hand, and this was just to get them all down, sealed up, so that I didn't make sure I didn't do any cross-threading before I started really getting on the bolts with the wrench or with the drill. So little by little process, you know, just using a systematic process to make sure yourself that you're not, you know, damaging your motor or causing you more problems. So that is the assembly of the intake manifold onto my 347, and hope you found that somewhat informative. But there's a few tricks in there. Use the RTV behind the gasket to hold it in place. I RTV'd around both water jackets, or the water ports on the heads, to the intake manifold. So you know, that was a recommendation by you know, the TV show Horsepower and some other guys that I've, you know, there's better build videos out there, but I'm doing this for 347 guys specifically. But putting a little RTV around the coolant areas. Now this one doesn't have a crossover tube in the back, but I went ahead and did that so I don't have any water running down into the valley of the engine block. So put a little RTV around your water ports on the heads. That'll keep those sealed up nice and tight, both front and back. Put a little bit of RTV to hold the gasket in place after I cut the water jackets out with a X-Acto knife. Made sure those are cleaned up. Trying to give you any more tips that I have. And then I did use the gaskets, but I used a sealant on them. It's the engine assembly lube from AC Delco. Stuff I've been using this whole time for this engine build. And so the engine will be going on a dyno outside of Austin. I've got some really great guys, Cobra guy helping me out with that engine build. He's an engine builder, and so this thing's actually going to get to be seen on a dyno. We're going to run it through, make sure all of the engine's breaking in properly, and that everything's set up properly. And it's easier to do that on a dyno than it is to do it actually in the kit car. So kit car's coming along, the MK4 by Factory 5 Racing, and the body's sitting outside my garage on a wheel dolly, so I can take it in and out as I need to. But that is the sum of where I'm at right now with the engine. I'm going to go ahead and torque all this down, put the water, the fill tube and thermostat housing on. I'm going to go ahead and throw in my distributor and make sure I've got a good gasket on that. Make sure that there's a little bit of lash in there to make sure that the distributor can move around freely. So I take the top off the distributor, and all of that will go in the next video. Thanks for watching. Hunky Handy Husband, my wife's name for me, not mine. 347 build, and all of the parts that were major expenses all came from the guys there in California, Trade Performance. Thanks, guys.